Hello and welcome back to the X-Files Revisited. We are on to Season 4, Episode 20, which is Small Potatoes. And this is one that has loomed large, as we've seen a couple of comments and heard that this is a fairly entertaining episode. So Brian, tell me a little bit about the legacy of Small Potatoes.
So it's a Vince Gilligan episode, I believe. I didn't even bother to check.
That is, yeah.
Right, okay. Yeah, I was pretty certain it was anyway. But so
Channeling the Morgan brothers.
yeah, channeling Darren Morgan and doing a pretty good job of it. It helped in no small part by the fact that Darren Morgan is in this episode quite largely. So it's almost like a bridge episode. Well,
Yeah.
He's kind of doing Darren Morgan, so we'll put Darren Morgan in it so that the fans will be like they'll kind of go along with it, but it is also a bridge to further episodes like this from Vince Gilligan.
Right, okay.
Most notably Bad Blood, which is coming, I think, next season. I think. This is a big one in regards to the legacy, just in terms of that, because it's like we've seen Chris Carter try to pull these ones off,
Yeah.
and it didn't work. Like with me, it's always about that theme, exploring the theme, particularly with Morgan. What makes Darren Morgan's episodes so special is that he takes a theme and he deals with it in every single scene of the episodes he writes. Whether Vince Gilligan gets to that degree, we will discuss. But yeah, definitely a big one for fans, I think. So, having said that, where do you think it ranks amongst the 217 episodes on IMDb?
Okay, well, I'm going to say it's in the top 10%. It's in the top 21, and I think I'll go for 19.
19. Oh, last week you were 10 out. This week you are 10 out.
Oh.
Care to guess which side of that 10?
I will say 29.
It's actually 9. It's number 9.
Wow.
Yes, not just 10%, but this cracks the top 10 episodes of all time, according to IMDb users. So the question is, are they smoking crack, or are they correct? Let's get into it. So we open up with a woman who is going into labour. They're going to take her in so she can have a baby, and there's a nurse taking details. She's kind of running alongside the gurney, trying to take these details from her. When she asks about the father, and she's like, he's not from around here. It's like, what, he's out of state? And it's like, he's from another planet. So it's like, okay, this woman's like, already we're a bit like, this could go the way of Jose Chung, where she's telling the truth, or she's just absolutely bonkers, or something somewhere in between. But what do you think of that as a setup?
I think, okay, we've got the Mulder hook straight away. Like it's the front page of Inquirer or some other supermarket paper thing. So yeah, it's funny as well. It feels funny. It feels ridiculous and silly, the fact that she's chasing down this woman who is far on in labour and getting like insurance details to make sure she can pay. Like, if she didn't have them, were they just going to throw her outside?
Oh man. Okay, so she has the baby, and turns out it has a tail.
Yep.
But that's not even the surprising thing. The surprising thing is that when the doctor lifts it up, he looks at it and says, "Oh, good Lord, not again, not another one." Yeah. Yep. So
this was the key into the episode for me, because it's delivered in such a dry humour manner. You know, like it's not shock, it's not horror. It's just like, gosh, you know, like almost like, here we go again. And I was like, oh, this could be fun.
I think the music plays into that as well. It's like there's a certain tone that's set by the music that tells you what kind of episode this is going to be. So, okay, so we as we said last week, after this intro stuff, you tend to get your Mulder and Scully scene in which Mulder is telling Scully about various things.
Yeah.
To which Scully is quite dismissive. And here, just downright kind of just mocking Mulder. So he's showing her an article about monkey babies.
Yeah. Which is like the worst Photoshop ever. But
yeah. So apparently the woman from the opening sequence, Amanda, I think her name was.
I can't remember.
Yeah, she's the fifth apparently that this has happened to.
Yep.
So Scully mocks Mulder after giving a fairly plausible explanation concerning rare cases of overgrown coccyx that people have actually. This is one of those things in the X-Files where I kind of wish I'd gone and looked it up afterwards to see if it was true. And often when I've said that, you said, it just so happens I did check it.
I haven't.
All right, but yeah, I mean it sounds plausible. An overgrown coccyx, and yeah, they get it cut off. But but Mulder, as it happens, doesn't have one of his wacky theories as of yet. He just wants to go check it out, just purely out of interest.
Yeah.
So they go to interview the woman. Very quickly descends into Scully having bragging rights and Mulder looking like a fool, because this woman says that the man that made her pregnant is none other than Luke Skywalker, who also claimed to be a Jedi Knight and even sang her a little song. Da, 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 da.
And it's the facial expressions, it's the acting here, the sincerity of the woman, the kind of here we go of Scully, and the almost dismay of Mulder, who's just like, one, this is just, she's clearly a little bit crazy, and two, I'm not going to hear the end of this.
I think it's
so much more going.
You know it's bad when not even Mulder is willing to stick around to hear the explanation. This is too wacky even for Mulder. So the funny part of it is that obviously when we get later into the episode, we know this woman is telling the truth.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mulder looks at babies. So does Eddie. There's a janitor with Eddie name tag on it. He's kind of peering over at him as well. That is none other than Darren Morgan himself. Scully comes to get him, and she has something. She's kind of playing with Mulder a bit, like to suggest that she's got a theory. So gets Mulder.
It's a theory that's kind of instigated with Amanda, who says something just as she leaves.
Yes.
You know, do you think Luke Skywalker got everybody pregnant?
Yeah. So Scully says 5 pregnancies, 1 father. Mulder says maybe the doctor who treated them all for in vitro fertilization. I think it was in vitro fertilization. I can never quite get my head around in vitro as to what exactly it entails, but so they go to the they get to the OBGYN to find out the couples the couples that were all kind of impregnated are all there roasting this doctor, because clearly it's come out in the newspapers, so they've all gone at the exact same moment in time. They mistakenly think that Mulder and Scully are another pair, so they're like, they catch you too? So they're roasting the doctor who's treating them due to low motility. Mulder goes mooching, finds handyman Eddie, spots the remnant of a tail, kind of as if it's been chopped off, because he's got that typical workman's builder's bum kind of thing going on. So he chases Eddie down in front of everyone and shows them the tail, which clues them into who the father might be. So
I will tell you something, Brian. Like, Darren Morgan throughout this gives a phenomenal performance. It's so funny, and every time I see him, it's almost like a cartoon character. Like the way things happen. Like, he stands up, and when he goes to run away, he almost kind of does like and then runs out the room. And when Mulder tackles him, they kind of slide along the floor. It's very exaggerated and over the top, and just like hilarious.
Yeah, and he's got the whole twitchy fingers thing as well. When he's lying on the floor, his hands like, I don't know what to do. Yeah, he's just he embodies the sad sack kind of loser guy a bit too well. But yeah. So they're interrogating Eddie, who kind of starts to reason what he's done. Like, basically, he has raped these women because he's had sex with them without their permission. They thought they were having sex with their husbands or Luke Skywalker. He's justifying it in his own mind, like he was doing some kind of public service. Well, these people wanted a baby. I gave them a baby. And he's like...
He actually says, where's the crime?
Yeah, where's the crime? So he says, hypothetically, where's the crime? So he claims to have had sex with each of the women, even though they have no recollection of him. So, yeah, just...
Still got a little bit of a mystery here of how he's like had sex with these women, which is quite interesting because it doesn't allude to it until like a scene or two on, where you kind of understand why he's been able to do that, but it's still adding that mystery element into it, which I thought was great.
Yeah, because obviously, like Scully says, Rohypnol. She's like, it's got to be Rohypnol. It's the only possible way these women would have sex with this man. So Eddie escapes thanks to some shape-shifting.
Yes.
So yeah, he's getting processed by this cop, and he's doing this weird stare at him. Yep. So it's clearly kind of looking at all the shape of his face, so he can kind of mimic it. But yeah, so this cop looks up, and then he suddenly finds himself staring at himself before getting slammed in the head with something. So okay, so the injured cop gives his thoughts to Scully, which aren't much of anything, to be honest, and then Mulder gives his. But well, he's going to give his, but then Scully kind of beats him to the punch and essentially projects what she thinks Mulder's theory is going to be. To which Mulder's response is, should we be picking out China patterns or what? It's like, it's pretty funny. It's like, you know me so well, we should be married. I
like the little line of, we've seen things like this before. We've both seen things like, and it's nice that they acknowledge some of the things that we've seen obviously happened before, and it gives them a shorthand into, okay, this could be some sort of possibility.
Which could be a Vince Gilligan trait, because the last time I remember this happening, it was Soft Light, and it was when the one where the shadow kind of sucks people into it. And there's a scene in that one when they're in the room and they see a grate, And the police officer says, you don't think anyone's going to got through there, surely? And Mulder's like, we've seen some things, like something along those lines, which is, and that episode was written by Vince Gilligan. That was, in fact, Vince Gilligan's first episode. So that might be a trait of his that perhaps we should look out for in future episodes.
But it's nice when they draw back into those other episodes.
Yeah,
it's good.
It's world building. It makes you feel like this isn't just a weekly thing for us. It's a weekly thing for them as well. It's like it's not just something we remember as fans, but it's embedded into their lives. So but all right. So they go to Eddie's house, and as they're walking into the house, Mulder asks Scully who she'd be if she could be anyone. They debate the difference between looking like someone else and being someone else. And then Scully chooses Eleanor Roosevelt. And there's one little moment, I don't know if you caught it, but I just found it hilarious. Because all the way through this episode, Eddie Van Blunt is constantly telling people that it's got a H in his name. The H is silent. So as Eddie's dad opens the door, I don't know if you noticed, but their name is on the side of the door. And as he opens the door, the H falls off.
Oh, I didn't notice that at all.
Oh, right. No, I just thought it was hilarious. Because it's almost like a visual key into the fact that the man stood before them isn't Edward Blunt, but Eddie Blunt. So, but I like that conversation between Mulder and Scully because typical Scully, she's got to be pragmatic about everything. She can't just play the game. Scully, you can be anyone. Well, being someone, Mulder, isn't the same as like looking like someone, Mulder, isn't the same as being. It's like, why are you trying to reason it? It's a it's a hypothetical game. I'm just asking you, who would you be? But she has to reduce it down to a science. So it's just Scully all over. And when she says Eleanor Roosevelt, it's like, oh, come on, like some dull historical character. But, yeah. So they open. Yeah, the door opens and Edward, supposedly Eddie's dad, answers. They tell him what's happened. Mulder sees a poster on the wall for a man with a tail, asks if that is in fact Edward, who says it is indeed, and asks if he wants to see the tail. To which Mulder is like, his eyes are lighting up like, yeah, and Scully's like, no, and then Mulder's like disappointment at that is just palpable.
Again, it's this, like, I loved this performance because it was larger than life. Again, it's like, is that you? And he's like, he does that little flourish with his hand, and then again when he runs away, it's like that kind of startled pause for 2 seconds, like the, oh, and then away. It's just so comedic.
So Edward uses Mulder's name, but Mulder never gave it, so he runs. And then Mulder chases him out onto the street.
This was one of the biggest laughs I had. So many men just pottering about in the street.
It's like Edward Scissorhands. The opening of Edward Scissorhands when they first go to that colourful street and there's just like everyone's doing everything like clockwork. All the cars come out at the same time and like it's just you got someone mowing the lawn, you got someone posting letters, you got someone working on the car, you got someone walking the dog. It's just like on any busy day on my street, if I just went out, I'd literally be the only person on the street.
Yeah, exactly. Tumbleweeds.
Yeah, pretty much. So Eddie goes to one of his victims' houses as their husband. So so you got the woman kind of looking after the baby when her husband pops through the door, all sweaty, like he's just been running, and she's like, what are you doing home, honey? It's like, and he's just like, he doesn't even say it. He just points. And that is something actually that I did like about this, is that he can't disguise his voice.
Yep.
He can look like someone, but he still keeps their voice. So it still keeps his voice, I should say. So Mulder and Scully check the house, and they find a body.
Yep.
Edward's body. And Mulder has a really great... There's lots of great one-liners in this. It's like where he says, "Do you think the fall killed him?"
His mummified remains coming.
Man. As I say, golden Mulder zinger, that one. So, so the real husband comes home to the wife. So she freaks out and she's like, "You literally just came home." And then the two of them kind of make their way to the bathroom. And then suddenly the door opens and out pops Agent Mulder. He looks at him and he's like, he does his best kind of Dewey from Scream impersonation when he's like, "It's all clear." He just
looks odd without a suit as well.
Yeah, he does. And he just gets wackier and wackier,
yep.
This episode. So Scully's doing an autopsy, and then Mulder comes in, and he breaks the tail.
Yeah, he seems to he's like, "I'm touching that." I'm touching that tail.
Yeah, so he snaps the tail off by accident, and then he's kind of trying to stick it back on, even though Scully's talking to him.
Yep.
She says the body has an extra layer of muscle running all the way through it. Mulder wonders if Eddie has the same defect. So obviously the thinking there being that if he's got this whole layer of extra muscle, he's able to manipulate it to. It's a bit of a stretch, but you know it kind of works.
It's a bit of a stretch to do it. But I like this one because it's exposition. They're trying to give you the reasons as to what's happened, but it's funny because we've got the secondary story of him breaking the tail and trying to fit it back into place as well, and turning his back and the faces. It takes a procedural scene that always happens and just gives it a fresh spin.
Yeah, and also instantly, because we've just seen Eddie become Mulder, you're thinking, is Mulder this clumsy because it's not really Mulder? Or, I mean, by the time the scene has played out, I'm totally convinced it is Mulder, because there's certain things he's saying that Eddie just would not know to say. But Mulder goes to see Amanda to ask her about Eddie. She says he's a loser, and they dated back in high school. So he looks really bummed out. Mulder seems really distressed by the fact that she's calling Eddie a loser. He gives her a rose and then leaves.
But this is a phenomenal sequence, because I thought it was Mulder walking into the room, and it's not until the look of disappointment comes over his face where I'm like, it's Eddie. And then to be able to carry that kind of performance off is just masterful. Like, I think it's terrific.
My only problem with this Mulder, with Eddie as Mulder, is that he's wearing the exact same suit.
Right.
He's got the same tie. And I'm
it's funny because they do mention like about the grey suit when they phone Mulder. I think Mulder's got like a navy suit on, I think.
Right. Well, it's just when Mulder comes, because obviously Eddie leaves the room.
Yeah.
And then the real Mulder arrives. But the real Mulder is wearing the same suit that Eddie is wearing.
Yeah.
He's got the same tie. So I'm a bit like, really? That's
right. 2 stars off.
Yeah, I mean, that's an attention to detail that's sorely lacking there. Like, it doesn't take a genius to go, like, let's just put him in a crappy suit. Like, it would have actually been funnier if he'd have been wearing a baggy kind of a loser suit, the kind of suit that a loser would wear, because it would feed into that personality that Eddie has. So, but yeah, the real Mulder arrives, catches on pretty fast when Amanda starts talking about the fact that he's already just been, and somebody phones. That couple phone him to say if we can get in the bathroom yet. So he goes for running after Eddie, see if he can catch up to him, and he finds two men, one of them being the doctor. He handcuffs them, apologizes.
I do love just, again, comedic moments when the guard is getting changed and he's like, put your hands up and the trousers fall down.
Yeah, simple moments like that. Yeah. So he handcuffs them and he apologises profusely in advance in case neither one of them is the man he's after. But then he hears a noise after Scully calls. Scully calls and he tells her to come down. Then he gets jumped by Eddie. So he looks in through this like the roof tile, and then he in the dark he just hears this guy goes, "You are a good-looking man," and then he kind of jumps out at him, and just nails him. But Scully arrives to find Mulder getting berated by the two men that he'd handcuffed. He tells her that there's no X-Files here and says it's time to go, much to her surprise. Then we see the real Mulder locked in the basement with a sandwich and a drink.
As soon as he says there's no X-Files, you're like, oh, yeah, I know what's happened.
And I feel like Scully's ever skeptical mindset is really it's what prevents her from seeing. Like, we obviously, the audience, would see right through this guy straight away. We're like, really? Like, you don't see this? Given the evidence as well that you've looked at and the theories that you've kind of heard and stuff, you're not at least a little bit suspicious about Mulder's behaviour going forward? But I buy that Scully wouldn't be, because she's a skeptic first and foremost. Well, when it comes to that kind of stuff, anyway. But so Mulder and Scully are being debriefed by Skinner. So Scully and Skinner are basically calling Eddie a rapist. And they're saying, and they basically come to the conclusion, so he's a rapist but not a murderer. And Mulder's like, it's a bit harsh, isn't it? You can see it in his eyes.
I love when Skinner's going through the report and he's like, you've spelt Federal Bureau of Investigation wrong. And he's like, it's a typo, and he's like, twice? He's like, Eddie can't do anything.
No, he really is a loser. So it's funny that a loser is gifted with these powers. It's like, imagine what. It's like the opposite of a superhero, isn't it? It's like you give the powers of a superhero to a total loser, and this is what you end up with: a serial rapist. Okay, so Mulder asks Scully what she's doing tonight as they walk down to Mulder's office. He's kind of fumbling with the keys because he doesn't know which key it is. She's just not noticing at all. But in response to his question, she gives the most droll, boring answer ever. Basically, she's going to go home and look through the files and read up on the science. And it's like, So, Mulder finally gets into his office while Scully goes off. He just kind of prattles about a bit, falls off the chair, looks at all.
Yeah. And just kind of goes, what a loser.
Yeah, it's like it takes a loser to spot a loser.
Yeah.
I think in this case. So, but this is the thing is like because this is where the episode is going, which obviously we'll get into more in the final sequence. But it's like Mulder almost gives this guy hope. It's like Eddie kind of gets the chance to examine Mulder's life and comes to the conclusion that actually it ain't so bad after all. So, Mulder, which we'll call him Eddie because we know he's Eddie at this point. Eddie goes to Mulder's house. He kind of puts the answering machine on, gets a message from Langley. And then he gets a message which gets him excited at first because he thinks he's going to be able to have a repeat date with someone, and then he realises it's a phone sex line. And it's like you really get. Well, let's face it, they aren't phoning Mulder because it's an out of the blue. Let's phone him and see. They're phoning him because Mulder's used them before. That's why. They're like seeing if they can drum up repeat business. So it's pretty funny. And then Eddie does his little taxi driver routine. His Travis Bickle kind of looking into the mirror. You talking to me? Pulling his gun and dropping it, and he's flashing his badge, which is so this whole scene. Yeah, the whole bit where he flashes his badge and he's like "Fuck Mulder, FBI." It was kind of like there was a bit of a running gag with fans at the time because of the amount of times that Mulder likes to flash his badge, and they even played on it in a Simpsons episodes that had Mulder and Scully in it, where Mulder flashes his badge and there's a picture of him in his Speedos. So it was a nice working in of something that fans of the show had already been pointing out quite a lot at that point. So, but yeah, it's amusing. So Mulder goes round to Scully's. He calls on Scully. Sorry, Eddie. Eddie calls on Scully. And he's like, "We never really talk, do we?" And she's like,
all the way as well.
Yeah, he's got fun. So, cut to like what I can assume is like a couple of hours later. They've been drinking. Scully's telling her a funny anecdote from her from her school days, and like she's in disbelief of herself that she's even telling him this because she's like, "I can't believe I'm telling you this, Mulder. It's like I'm seeing a whole new side of you." And which should be a dead flipping giveaway. Come on, Scully. And Mulder's like, well, yeah, is it good? Is it a good kind of side? And she's like, yeah. So that's when he takes his opportunity. He moves in for a kiss, but just as he's about to lock lips, the door busts open, and a rather bedraggled looking Mulder puts his gun on Mulder, who suddenly slinks back and turns into Eddie, while Scully just stands there in absolute horror.
I love when it pans back to Eddie and he just kind of shrugs his shoulders as if like,
you can't blame a guy for trying.
Again, just goes back to that comedic performance, which was absolutely totally perfect.
Yeah, but I just love the fact that Mulder has walked in on himself almost about to kiss Scully.
Yep.
And he's like, where is his mind going right now? All the opportunities racing through his brain that he's like, that he missed. So Mulder,
never mind Mulder. Think about Scully who's just sitting there going like, oh my god.
The sheer embarrassment, because it's quite it would play into Mulder's ego quite a bit. I would imagine it'd be a card he could get out every now and again, whereas Scully just like, drop it, Mulder, just drop it.
Yeah, remember that time you almost had a baby with a tail?
So Mulder visits Eddie in prison because Eddie asked him to come.
Yeah.
And so he basically says to Mulder, I was born a loser. You're one by choice. So
I'll tell you what I liked about this scene, right? And it's silly. It's the hat. Superstar. He's in a maximum security prison with a hat. Superstar. And he says he hates it. And he gets beaten up every week and someone takes it and he gets a new one. And then when they walk out of that room, it's got a guy mopping the hallway with a hat on.
Oh, man. Yeah. Classic.
And they also mention in that sequence that they've been giving him muscle relaxers so he can't change.
Yeah. Which was Mulder's idea, apparently. Yeah. But I just like that ultimately the whole episode ends up being a character study of Mulder.
Yeah.
But through the eyes of someone else. But just that line, I was born a loser, you're one by choice. It says so much. and it's what makes Mulder cool, ultimately. Because there is a difference between being a loser like Eddie, who just doesn't take what he's got and do something good with it. Doesn't kind of...
He's fallen into the typical tropes of what someone like that would do.
Yeah, he's got a job as a janitor, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's like...
You can tell that Eddie's motto is, you can't fail if you never try.
Yeah. If something's worth doing properly, it's not worth doing at all.
Yeah.
So it's just like... Whereas Mulder, he's aspirational. It's just that his aspirations don't match what other people want of him. He's still achieved so much, but not in the way that people would expect of him. And it's like he has skills, but he chooses to pursue other things rather than follow the career path that other people would expect him to. So he chooses to be a loser, but because he's chosen it, it's almost what makes him a cool character in many ways. So as Mulder and Scully are leaving the prison, Scully tells him that he's not a loser, which is sweet. But then he says, but I'm no Eddie Van Blunt either, am I? Which is kind of like a little dig to say that. You nearly got with him. Right, go on, wrap up.
Hilarious episode. I think it was nice to have that amount of levity. It didn't overpower the episode. It still had the typical science fiction elements that it's had before, say like Toombs, only if Toombs was a bumbling idiot. It has that kind of feeling about it. I thought Morgan was remarkable. Like, he was so funny, and when Mulder takes on that role, he again carries in that bumbling idiot really well. It's a 5 out of 5 easily. A standout episode, and I'll be surprised if it's not my favourite of the season.
Yeah, it's a 5 out of 5 from me as well. It's a really great episode. Just the comedy works. That's the thing. It's on point. The gags actually make me laugh. I've seen it so many times, and I still get a laugh from it. Everybody gets to play with their own characters as they're established. It's brilliantly written. It doesn't quite zone in on a theme in the way that a Darren Morgan script would, but it's still really clever in the way that it dissects the character of Mulder through the lens of someone else. 5 out of 5. Brilliant stuff.
Yeah. Great. So tell me a little bit about episode 21, Zero Sum.
Zero Sum. So you'll remember that Skinner some time ago made a deal with Cancer Man.
Yep.
We're going to get to that. So
this is the causality of that choice.
Yes.
Interesting. That makes me kind of eager to get to that one sooner rather than later.
Okay.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed Small Potatoes as much as Brian and I did. I think we agreed it's a standout episode. It will probably appear in both our top 5 episode, which is coming pretty soon. A few more weeks, I would imagine, after we finish up this season. We'll see you next episode, where you can join us for Zero Sum. So join us on our podcast provider or on the YouTube channel, where you can watch us jibber jabber about the latest X-Files episode. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.